Hi there, my name is Memo, this is my channel, Houseplantygoodness, and essentially it's a place where I like to geek out about my big passion. You might be able to see some of it around me. It's tropical houseplants. Now today, this is going to be another continuation of the plant review series, and the plant I want to be talking about today is the plant right here. So we're moving away from the philodendrons for a bit, because I know a lot of people have requested that I start doing some anthuriums as well, and I thought I would start with one of my favorites and one of the easiest ones I've got so far, which is the Anthurium Veitchii, or the Kin Anthurium. And let me bring it in a bit closer and you might be able to see. And just to give a bit of background on how these reviews are done for the new people that are joining, the way that I will structure these reviews is very much like what you might see on an Amazon review. So I do also encourage you to, if you've got experiences with this plant that may be different than mine, that might align with what I've got, put them in the comments down below. Let's create a space where this is kind of a repository for reviews for this specific plant, because as far as I'm aware, I don't think I've seen something like these types of videos anywhere else. If I'm wrong, do let me know as well. But with these reviews, it is going to be biased in terms of my experiences because it's to do with how I've experienced this plant. I can't talk about other people's experiences with this plant. And again, it's going to be skewed towards my growing conditions. And for the new people here, I've moved house 3 times in the last 3 years. These plants have moved with me 3 times now. But they've had different growing conditions. At the moment, they're growing in the conservatory. The majority of them anyway are growing in a conservatory. I'm based in the UK, so it can be grey, it can be wet, it can be cold at times. And yeah, so the humidity in here stays relatively high, about 70–80%. The heat in the winter is between 15 and 20 degrees Celsius. And in the summer, it obviously can go a lot higher than that. And for the people that have been here for a while, they'll be able to see in some of my summer videos, there are dark shade cloths that I add at the top of the conservatory. Otherwise, all of these plants would fry to a crisp. So I need to kind of protect them from the summer sun. In the winter, I take it off because I want the plants to get as much light as they possibly can. But yeah, I think that's everything I wanted to say in terms of kind of a bit more of an intro. Let's dive into the first topic, which is going to be on background. And just to give you a bit of an idea of what I'm going to be talking about, we'll do some background on the plant. We'll talk about speed of growth, ease of propagation, pests, availability, and then we'll wrap up with some final thoughts and my score for this plant. So yeah, let's move on to background. So, okay, the background on this plant, and I will bring up another one as well, just so you can see, because there is a bit of a story here. There is a second one here, and I'll bring that up again in a minute, but the story behind how this plant came into my care is that this was a secondary purchase. My first purchase, which believe it or not, had probably slightly larger leaves than this largest leaf on this Veitchii, was this one, and I got it from an online seller on Instagram, and I won't name and shame basically, but this plant came to me, this one in a gloriosum, and for the people around, they've probably heard this story a few times now, came to me full of root rot. So I had to chop off most of its leaves, I had to get rid of all the rot on the roots, and pretty much had to start from scratch. Now, what I then did find is a lovely, lovely, lovely local plant store which ships UK-wide as far as I'm aware. I don't know if they ship to the rest of Europe as well, but called Turnip Tropical. And Carl's amazing. Carl, who runs Turnip Tropical, is a true font of knowledge for most things kind of tropical plant related. He's been doing this for years now. But he managed to score some plug plants of the Veitchii, basically. So it was tiny, and what I'll do is I'll do the same thing I usually do with the background on these videos, and you'll see what I mean by it was quite small. And I'll put a picture here. This is from my plant care reminder app, and yeah, they're not Instagrammable pictures, they're just a quick snap that I put on the app so it can kind of refresh my memory when I've got this many plants. I need visual reminders of what a plant looks like. Granted, almost 2 years on since I've had these plants, that picture doesn't look anything like what they look like now, but you know what I mean. But yeah, so he got little plug plants, and I know a lot of people bought some from him. Some had success, some others didn't. These were interesting because what I did is I got the plug plant, I got it into the right soil type. So with most anthuriums, it needs it to be as light as possible and to be evenly moist. You don't want your anthuriums to be going dry. This is one that I will say has got relatively thick roots, and I don't know whether or not this is going to pick up on the camera. It might do through the pond. You might be able to see some of those green roots, but nowhere near as thick and chunky as you might be getting. And I've got my Vitarifolium on the side here, which has got very thick roots, almost a bit like a Phalaenopsis orchid, and nothing like a Clarinervium, which again has got very, very thick roots, but thick enough roots, if that makes sense. But I put this on heat mat, and I've had bad experiences with heat mats, and I'm aware that people want a heat mat video and a bit of a story and background and kind of learnings from that, and that will be coming. I'm just trying to figure out how to structure it. But yeah, it worked really well for this one. It started sizing up quite quickly. That's the interesting thing that I want to do now. I've got loads of seedlings and loads of kind of, they're almost at plug plant stage now with most of my anthuriums in prop boxes with grow lights on top of them, but not heated underneath with a heat mat. And I know from what, at least from what I've seen online and doing some of my own research, they do appreciate some heat underneath in order for them to grow a bit faster. And I've noticed that they're very slow growing. It's the winter, it's colder, it kind of makes sense. I'm also using my heat mats at the moment because I'm starting seeds for my allotment. So it's a whole bunch of vegetable seeds, which I need to start now so they can grow out and be ready to go in the ground when the last frost risk has passed, basically. So, but yeah, so with this, it did really well. It's upsized really quickly. For a long period of time, this was in a chunky aroid soil mix in terracotta, if I'm not mistaken, both of them. And they were getting kind of medium light, and they still are getting slight medium light, if I'm not mistaken. But since then, I have moved them into pond. I watered them as normal, and then eventually transitioned them over to self-watering, and they're very happy. One thing I will say about at least my experiences with this specific anthurium, it's not one that if you miss it for a day or two and it goes fully dry, that if you water it, it will throw a hissy fit. It's not quite as demanding as from what I've heard from as in relation to the kind of one that it's always related to, which is the Queen Anthurium, so the Anthurium warwickwianum. That one's a bit more temperamental from what I've heard. I have actually since had a lovely follower who actually sent me a baby propagation of the Queen Anthurium. So hopefully with time, I should be able to give my review on that one. But it ain't going to be happening anytime soon. It's very, very small still. And I'm trying to see if I can keep it happy. But yeah, that's enough about the background. There's a lot of background with this one. Let's move on to the next topic. So the next topic is speed of growth, or growth speed. So let's see if I can benchmark this, because I know a lot of people requested me to benchmark this against other things. So it's a relatively, I think this might, I'm trying to think, this might be one of my fastest growing anthuriums. And granted, I've had relatively juvenile leaves and it's lost all of its baby leaves, obviously. But it's managing to retain at least 5 on this one. The other one is retaining a maximum of about 4, I would say. And you can see what will generally happen is, let me put this one down and bring this one up and show you. So there is a lovely new leaf that is coming in, and hopefully I can see all the ruffles, and hopefully it's going to be nice and mature. But you can see that one's on its way out. The rest of them are still holding strong, and you can see I've still got that in its kind of water reservoir as well. But the speed of growth for this one, for an anthurium, I find it's relatively fast. So it's always going to still be an anthurium. It's not going to grow to the same speed as a pothos, and I'll benchmark it against a pothos. If a pothos will bring out, in this environment, if it will bring out a new leaf every 2 to 3 weeks, this one will bring out a new leaf in the winter once every month, or once every month or two. In the summer, probably once a month, potentially. So yes, it does appreciate some warmth. The other thing obviously to say is I've got it in kind of medium to bright indirect light. If you give it and hopefully people that have been around anthuriums for a long enough time will know that if you give it brighter light, you might get bigger growth and faster growth, but you might get slightly more washed out, lighter green leaves. If you want the slightly darker green leaves, give it a tiny bit less light. So you might need to play around with that. But generally speaking, not a particularly slow anthurium. Now let's talk about ease of propagation. And I'm going to hold my hands up and say, I don't think, other than germination of the inflorescences and creating the seeds and then planting out the seeds, I don't think I've ever taken propagations of most of my anthuriums, mainly because I don't have an awful lot of stem to feel comfortable cutting and propagating. I don't think this is one that's particularly difficult to do that with. I've ordered once a while ago a chunk of a specific anthurium and I was hoping to root it out. Some people have had good successes with that. I did everything that I saw online. It failed miserably for me, but it's a risk that you take with chunks sometimes. But taking the learnings that I did with this one as a seedling kind of plug plant, it was relatively small. It was okay and it was relatively easy. You do need to kind of hover around it to see that it's kind of happy, I find. I never had it in a propagator, that's nothing to say, but the heat mat did really do it a lot of good. You just need to be really careful with heat mats that it doesn't dry out too much, because the problem that you get with heat mats is the soil might go bone dry, and if you don't realize it and it stays bone dry and getting heated for the next 24 hours, you can really get your plant to struggle. So just bear that in mind, essentially. But yeah, on that limited experience, not particularly difficult. I haven't had any seeds from these plants yet because I haven't had any inflorescences yet. They're not quite mature enough yet. But yeah, in terms of kind of aligning that with the plug plant, not too bad, at least in my experience. And as I said, some other people with the same plug plants did struggle a bit. So if you've got experiences, do drop them down below. I would also like to hear it as much as anybody else would on this video. So availability for this plant, that's an interesting one, because with this specific plant, it's not one that I have seen come up very often in stores, in the average store. So you can still find it usually on eBay through importing it through the Far East and South America, and potentially some more specialist sellers online, which usually would import it into your country, would rehab it and then sell it on to you as well. You can get some larger leaves as well. This one, as I said, it was a plug plant. This was an import and purchase from an importer, from a store, kind of, that bought them in from abroad. My suspicion was that there was absolutely zero rehab that was done with this. That's why it came to me with fully rotted roots, because I'm assuming they got it and then sent it out relatively quickly, and the root rot might have already happened when it was coming over from the Far East. So buyer beware, as always with those things. And as long as you're aware of that and you're happy to take the risk, then it's not as much of an issue. And I kind of knew what I was getting in with this one. Yes, it was disappointing, but fact of life, it's what you're going to get. Well, it's the risk that you run sometimes with imports. Interestingly enough, I don't think this is one of the anthuriums that generally will throw that much of a hissy fit. I might be wrong. But not hugely available still, and again, this is relevant to the time that I'm in at the moment. So if you're thinking that this is kind of odd when you're watching this, do check out the date of this review, because if it's 2 or 3 years in the future, things may have changed. You might be able to find this in regular plant stores. I would love to see that, but yeah, at the moment, I think when I first bought it and I bought the root rot plant, that was probably on the low treble digits when I bought it. The plug plant really wasn't. It was kind of mid to low double digits. And I think those prices would still hold true. And as I said, at least this is in the UK and getting Europe. I don't know for the rest of the world what the prices might be at the moment. But yeah, and it was, you still need to look for this. It's not as difficult to come across as it used to be many years ago, but it's still one that you're not going to find readily available, at least at the moment, in stores. Let's talk about pests. Interestingly, with this one, no pest pressures whatsoever. I'm trying to think. Yeah, no pest pressures. Maybe the touch of spider mites at some point, but again, if you catch it early enough, it doesn't grow particularly fast. I don't think I have had any other real pest pressures on this, so that's good. But yeah, I think that's all I can say about this. There's no real pest pressures, at least that I've had. If you've had different experiences, do let us all know in the comments down below. But yeah. Moving on to final thoughts. So I'll do the usual thing that I say with this is, knowing what I know now, if I didn't have this plant, would I buy it if I came across it? Yes, I would. I would. This is definitely an anthurium that I'm very happy that I got in my collection. Learning opportunity, however, is if you're buying from a seller and they've got it from abroad or from a seller, a grower in the Far East, get a picture of the roots to make sure that there's no root rot. Doesn't guarantee that by the time they send it to you, it won't then get root rot, because if it's that stressed, it might happen. But yeah, as a whole, really, really quite happy with this plant. If I was to give it a score from, say, 0 being the worst, 10 being the best, and kind of benchmark it against other anthuriums, I would actually give this an 8 or a 9 out of 10. Really, really quite cool. Relatively hardy for an anthurium, and a true joy to watch this grow and mature and get more and more ruffles, and the plant getting larger as well. But yeah, I would definitely recommend this, based on my experience at least. It's been quite good. As I said, the one that was struggling, it's been struggling for a while. Believe it or not, that other one, I'll bring it up again, is 6 months older than this one. And I got it as a mature plant. So that tells you a bit there, basically. But it took a while to kind of root out. But yeah, I think that's everything I want to say about this one. As I keep saying through this video, if you've got your experience, I would love to, and I'm sure other people would as well, would love to hear them in the comments down below. Leave your own review for this plant if you've got it. And yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed. Hopefully I shall see you here soon, and I truly, truly hope that you have a great rest of your day. Thanks. Bye.